Hey everybody, this is my Oppenheimer spoiler review. Hoo-wee. I'm glad I saw this film with a friend. A friend of mine, he and I have a lot in common. We have really good conversations and enjoy a lot of different films. And this is one that it was really good to have a buddy to talk to afterwards. So if you do want to go see Oppenheimer, I recommend you go see it with someone. Or if you want to see it solo, turn on a review such as this to allow some of these ideas that are going to be floating around in your mind for quite some time. To maybe grow a little bit more, get a little bit of that fertilizer to grow those seeds and see where these ideas can take you further on your exploration of different art. I highly implore that you check out Oliver Stone's The Untold History of the United States as a companion piece, in particular the chapter about the bomb, and it'll help from a historical and documentary style perspective give you this same story. And I was familiar with this story and the way the United States of America had treated Oppenheimer after the Manhattan Project had concluded. The acting in this film is out of this world great. It's heavy. It's adult, meaning that it's grown-ups having to do grown-up things, even on an emotional level. There's a number of artistic choices that are made that I had to wrestle with afterwards, going, well, why do this? Why make that scene? Why make it harder for every teacher in the United States of America to show this film to wipe out 3 hours in their class because you have nudity? Probably because feminine beauty is the most beautiful thing on the planet, and when you create the most destructive thing on the planet, maybe you want to have something beautiful in your film. There's something beautiful in the life of this person, even though it was complicated. Oppenheimer is not a nice dude. And some people may be turned off by that when it comes to your protagonist in a film. But this film is about Oppenheimer. And it starts with Prometheus, this quote about Prometheus. Prometheus was this person who stole the fire from the gods in this Greek story and gave it to humanity. And he was chained to a rock and tortured for eternity as his punishment for doing so. I think about what that really means, the alliteration, the application to Oppenheimer. That the rock being the gadget, the bomb, the invention of creating this device because he could see a world beyond ours. He could see that if you could activate this chain reaction of neutrons, physics, physics people help me out there in the comments, firing into each other, creating a chain reaction. And that's what can destroy. It's such a powerful way. So you feel the heaviness of the film, the density within the characters' beautiful performances, but also the anxiety and espionage of him and others, and the true social costs of putting this bomb together. There's a lot of wonderful actors that you haven't seen in a long time play characters that are crucial to the body of work of Oppenheimer and also his entire life. To see these actors that I've seen in rom-coms way back in the day really shine as these professors made me feel that everybody in this project really believed in it. And when you're working with Christopher Nolan, of course you're going to believe in such a project. But I think this was even bigger than Christopher Nolan. This was something real. Something that really happened. Something that paints such a stark picture of the history of the United States of America and everyone else involved during that time, of the choices they had to make in fear of nations that were destroying people and countries. They having the potential ability, because of the discoveries of science, to be able to build a bomb before the Allies do. And that fear being so driven as to why they made these decisions. And the debate that we still have today, that I remember having in junior high, I believe it was 8th grade, about should we have dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I remember having this discussion with fellow students and also the teacher of like, yeah, but we were going to send in so many more troops, and Japanese troops would defend, and there'd be a lot more bloodshed. So this way, it was to stop more people from dying by showcasing our power. You know, I go back and I think about it, it's like, why didn't we just showcase the power off the coast, far away enough that, you know, it would probably damage some of the sea life, which is sad, but it would demonstrate that power, not to drop it on the Japanese, but to really show the emperor that it's time to surrender, you know? And that's a great what if, hindsight 2020. And even making that statement, I don't want to be dismissive of the weight of making that decision. But in the grander context of things in history, that decision was not just about Japan. We firebombed, I say we, the United States of America, its military during World War II, firebombed Tokyo like crazy. Tokyo was a city built out of bamboo. We annihilated that city with firebombing. Firebombing that they say in this film, and I'm glad that they did. There's one line where they say it, where one of the people in the military cabinet says the firebombing in Tokyo will do more damage than one of these atomic bombs. So us bombing Tokyo and other regions of Japan, along with Europe and other places, was the way of warfare at that time. Fire. And to do so was a demonstration not just to Japan, but also to the Soviet Union. The complicated nuance of this film is able to express each of these heavy ideas in a way that's intimate and close and raw and uncomfortable. There's a scene in this film that's very uncomfortable. Spoilers, okay? We're going to talk about very specific spoilers now. Florence Pugh plays a character named Jean that Oppenheimer is infatuated, if not in love with, through many years of his life, a certain chunk of his life. And there's a scene where he's describing meeting her at a hotel after he was already married with Emily Blunt's character, Kitty, and Kitty imagining them copulating together. And it's a very uncomfortable scene as an audience member. But you're supposed to feel it because that's what probably Kitty is feeling at that time. That uncomfortable feeling of imagining her husband, who she has 2 kids with, not saying she's the best wife nor the best mother, for sure. She is, as Oppenheimer put it, they are selfish people, very selfish people. And it's heartbreaking to see. But to stare that reality in the face, I think, was a bold choice as a filmmaker and as actors. Real people. To see that, again, that's something that I had to kind of wrestle with, because why show nudity in a film about science when this could be shown in schools, you know? And I think, is that self-censorship? Is that more of a commentary on the puritanistic history and shackles that we still have as a society, where it's okay that we see people die left and right in film and television, but if we show breasts, it's game over? Everybody loses their mind, okay? But this is an argument that people have had that are much smarter than me, for sure. But that's in the film too. I mean, that type of, we're presenting this as something that's beautiful, 2 people having this experience together. Where Oppenheimer first reads from the Sanskrit, I have become death, destroyer of worlds. Apologies if I'm misquoting it, but you know, when 2 people are sharing that moment together, everything else melts away. It's innate. It's in our nature. It's in our DNA to have that sensory experience, and it to be potentially obliterated, destroyed forever because of this gadget, because of this bomb. Again, I'm trying to get in Christopher Nolan's mind of why you would include this in a science film, but to me, it just makes the creation of the gadget, the bomb, just that much more scary. The scene where you see that woman's face, it looks like it's like being peeled off from radiation, and it's all practical, but it's Oppenheimer when the bright light and thinking of what this bomb has done to people. They don't even show you. They don't show you the aftermath. There's one, he steps into a corpse that's like of ashes, like a crispy outer shell that steps into. But other than that, I don't remember seeing any other depiction of what the bomb does to people. You see how the people react to it. The people sitting in the classroom or the presentation hall, part of Los Alamos, where there's presentation slides and they're describing what it has done to the Japanese people, but you don't see it. You just see people's reactions, especially Oppenheimer's looking down and being grossed out. That's a specific choice that Christopher Nolan made. That you feel, why? Why would you not show what this device had done? But we can go to Google. You can see it. You and I can go see it right now. That information I don't think was readily available to the American public after it was shown through any type of footage that was taken, or the journalists and reporters there in Japan to be able to showcase it. But you and I can see the footage, and it's a nightmare. War is a nightmare for sure, but at this level, it definitely was a brand new world, a brand new age. And the movie had I think, a difficult task to balance that with making something entertaining. And this film is at a level of entertainment where it makes you want to read the book and dive more into history and understand the weight of these times and the consequences that we're still living into today. So if that's what you're going into with Oppenheimer, feeling that you're going to see a historical film that will move you in a way that is scary because of the gravity of the situation and what this gadget represents, then I think you're going to have a great time. If you're going in thinking that this is going to be how cool nukes are and seeing a nuclear device go off, I'll be honest with you, everybody. I thought when the nuke finally went off, it was a bit underwhelming. And I mean, it's done on purpose because the audio cut in of when the bomb is going off, you see the light and the explosion way before you hear the sound. You see the people reacting to the sound. Is him breathing. And I think it's him breathing with Jean when they're together, and he's reading from the Bhagavad Gita. Once again, I have become death, destroyer of worlds. Because the most destructive thing that's ever been seen on the planet mixed in with, the most beautiful thing. It's definitely a choice. So I was not expecting that whatsoever. I knew that things were going to be shot in camera. I thought the nuclear blast was going to be something like awe-inspiring or maybe glorious could be a word, but just like, whoa, that was totally worth the price of admission. But it was just a giant fireball. And that's all it is. It's a giant explosion from matter being manipulated with a certain element and creating a chain of reaction that is just so freaking destructive. And it's fire. Just fire everywhere. Balls of fire. It's haunting, man. It's haunting that we are the nation. The United States of America is the only nation that has used nuclear devices on another nation. And then we have aspired not to allow it to happen again, no matter who. But I mean, that's what Christopher Reeve is all about in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Getting rid of all the nukes, That movie had a low budget, but it had high aspirations, that's for sure. Who would I recommend Oppenheimer to? I'd recommend Oppenheimer to anybody that's interested in science, anybody that really enjoyed Interstellar, Inception. If you're a Nolan fan, for sure. When it comes to the filmmaking, the shooting was great. The audio mix, I felt there was something off with the dialogue here and there. But the performances and the layout of the structure, the editing, I feel it helped having the black and white with Robert Downey Jr. character's scene, with Strauss's scenes. And that reveal at the end was so Salieri and Mozart from Amadeus. And I believe Robert Downey Jr. even mentioned this in some interviews with Cillian Murphy, that this vindictiveness between two people could cost the entire planet. But the vindictiveness in Salieri and Mozart Salieri having been the commissioned composer for the king, Mozart this child prodigy. If you haven't seen Amadeus, I highly recommend you watch it. It is a great film. F. Murray Abraham does such an amazing job as Salieri. But to understand that level of grievance that you would feel that you will want to destroy another person because of their hubris, because of the way that they treated you or disrespect you or dismissed you, but based on your perception that maybe he wasn't even thinking about you. And the pivotal point of the film is not the Trinity test. That is the crescendo, I think. Well, yeah, it's a pivotal point. We'll call it that. But it's the point that most captivated me, and I think will captivate a lot of people, was the conversation between Albert Einstein and Oppenheimer that caused Einstein to leave and not even glance at Strauss, and created this vindictiveness in this man. And it had nothing to do with Strauss whatsoever. It was that Oppenheimer had referred to the time that he wanted Einstein to do the calculations to double check to see that the atmosphere would not catch fire. And Einstein had reminisced about that, and Oppenheimer said how you wanted to make sure, that we didn't destroy the world. And then Oppenheimer says, I'm pretty sure we did. I'm pretty sure we destroyed the world. And the weight of Oppenheimer being tied to that rock, going back to Prometheus, being tied to a rock and tortured for all eternity, Oppenheimer being tied to the rock, being tied to this gadget, being tied to the bomb, and being tortured for all eternity, being tortured by his own sense of guilt or moral quandary. It's almost too much for the human mind to understand that you have invented a device, a form of technology, in a world that you've lived in. You've only just been able to glance deeper into it through theory and mathematics proving it, and then doing the experiment and proving it to the world. You are absolutely alone. And the torture of your colleagues and friends turning on you, but then in the end going to shake your hand when you win these awards. And I love what Albert Einstein says. He says, they're not doing it for you, they're doing it for them, to massage, I'm paraphrasing here, but to massage their own egos, to make sure that, it's all going to be okay. A line that Robert Downey Jr.'s character says is there's a difference between genius and wisdom. You can have the genius, but you can lack the wisdom. And that was really profound as well. The wisdom to be able to navigate the political sphere. The wisdom to know that even in your idealistic justification of why you were part of certain groups or entertained certain people as friends, etc., that wouldn't bite you in the ass afterwards. Living in the world you're in instead of the world you want it to be. And that was some very profound stuff, especially when you see just the unfair treatment of Oppenheimer by the United States government. And having friends and family stick up for him. And each of those actors having very specific, nuanced, wonderful roles. Rami Malek having that awesome monologue at the end, obliterating Robert Downey Jr.'s chances, his character's chances of being able to be part of the cabinet of the of the U.S. government. That was a cathartic payoff. That was a 1-2 hit. You had the one hit of Strauss explaining everything and revealing that he was the one that did all this stuff to hurt Oppenheimer, and then boom, Rami Malek's character coming in there to try to right those wrongs. Just fascinating filmmaking. Really fascinating. The heaviness in this film it's a lot of weight, folks. Again, it's really a lot to think about. And it sparks this I want to say creation, but it sparks this desire to really want to understand more of this character and read the book. Read about the implications of the atomic age, how that really changes as a nation. But The Untold History of the United States is something that I wanted to watch immediately after, and I went off and watched that episode. I'm going to watch it again because I kind of fell asleep. I was tired. but I want to watch it again to really get the full story and the idea. The cameos and seeing all sorts of different actors in this movie was phenomenal. But I tell you what, I had no idea. Spoilers. Gary Oldman was going to show up as Harry Truman. That blew me away. And that conversation, which happened, I also heard Harry Truman was quoted as saying, "Get that son of a bitch out of my office and don't let him come back in again." In the movie, he says, "Get that crybaby out of my office," or don't let that crybaby into my office again," or something like that. Yeah, man. Go dive into history. There is some crazy stuff, crazy depressing stuff. So that's what this piece of art does. It allows you to try to examine that world, what it took for these scientists to accomplish this mission, and what it cost the world. Really fascinating film. But I'm not jonesing to go out and watch it again right now, though, because it's a bummer. It's a downer. But maybe like in a couple weeks I would be, but definitely probably either rent or buy at home. Really cool score. Really neat way to show that deeper world that exists in theory in Oppenheimer's mind. Epic, profound, but uncomfortable. I think it's an uncomfortable movie, and it's meant to be made that way. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think this is definitely such a conversation generator of a film, as most Christopher Nolan's are. But part of me, and I'm sure some of us, are kind of wanting to go back to like the Dark Knight trilogy of let's do a cool adventure, man, because this stuff was heavy emotionally. Heavy stuff. But if you're a scientist and you think the science was represented well, let me know down below, because that's one thing that I love about Interstellar, is having the science being represented very well, at least of what we know to be science and black holes at that time. Speaking of time, it's my time right now. I'm going to go do a Barbie review right now, so make sure to check that out. Highly recommend that film. It's going to be a lot of fun in theaters, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in, supporting the channel, like and subscribe, and I'll see you online.